Welcome back to another episode of Profound Conversations. And we're continuing our dialogue about breath, power, and presence with Changa Bell on life force and liberation. One of the things that we didn't get a chance to talk about in our last episode that I really wanted to bring clarity to for some of our listeners and our viewers is when you say you are ERYT 500 or 1,000, what does that mean?
Experienced registered yoga teacher with the Yoga Alliance. That's what that distinction is. Whenever you see that plus 200, plus 500, sometimes you'll see 800 or 1,000. That means the hours of study that you put in study and practice, because they do count practicum hours, that contributes to that distinction.
Okay, so that means you've been doing the work and you know what you're doing and you've been doing it for a while.
Well, hopefully, because some people do get that distinction, and I'm not so sure that they know what they're doing. Like, it depends on your. That's why even the Bible does that. That's why the pedagogy matters. Who was your initial teacher?
Ah,
Were they good? If they were solid, then you're probably solid. But if you had someone that wasn't that solid, then you may not be that good. You just got a lot of hours of non-useful stuff.
so where is your lineage? Who is your initial teacher and how did you get
Ooh, look
involved
at
in that?
you. Yeah, yeah. Well, Shivananda is one of my lineages. And then I'm with Sri Yoga out of India, and that's another lineage. And then I have an Iyengar. Yeah, I guess, yeah. It's an Iyengar lineage as well. So three different lineages. Usually Iyengar is not mixed with Shivananda. So Iyengar is more props and restorative, and it's literally yoga for every body type. Like he cured himself of rickets, and so it's very hard. I'm only Iyengar level 1, and that was through Patanjali Yoga. There are 3 levels. Like just to give you an example, to get to level 2, you got to be able to sustain a headstand for 8 minutes. That's a long time to be inverted on your head. Not a handstand like you see people walking through the street, but on your head for 8 straight minutes. Yeah, I didn't.
And what does that do for you?
Well, it gives your heart a rest because your heart is usually pumping away from gravity. It keeps your brain, the capillaries and the distribution of blood in your head still has like avenues, but when you let the blood pool there, sort of stretches it out. So it's like stretching your arteries and veins as opposed to just your muscles. And so that's what it does. It and then you'll eliminate headaches and sort of brain diseases to get the plaque off of those areas. People have Alzheimer's and that plaque building up. Well, you spend time inverting, it's like rinsing. It's like taking a bottle, like you put bottle water in a bottle and you shake it to rinse it. Well, it's a way of doing that.
Okay. And so
Yeah, I mean they were brilliant people.
what happens at minute 9? And what's the world record on headstanding? Just so
I
we can
don't
put it in perspective.
I don't know because that's the thing is all yoga is all about the diminishing of the ego. So that
So
is real.
nobody
It's almost
actually
like
documents it.
spiritual pledging. Like you're being hazed, but by who? You're not being necessarily hazed by the individual teacher. You're being hazed by yourself. What level of all growth comes through suffering, right? Nobody has ever changed. That's why Buddha himself got out of the palace. That's why Jesus left his lineage of David. Like they went to suffer so that they could grow and be part of the people. So self-suffering, self-imposed, you really are challenging your body, your spirit, your mind. Everything has to go into that moment, and you have to be stacked vertically just right so that you don't compress your cervical spine and get some damage, and you have to be taught right. So it's
So
really
kids,
just about training those muscles, and then you have proof of the training and the ability to do it.
right. So kids shouldn't do this at home.
Oh no, never that. I
So,
sprained my
so
neck the first time.
wow. Okay. Well, this is good to know that these are the kinds of simple things that could be done that you could build up with that can have such profound effects on the body, especially
Mhm.
with the American. diet leading to so much Alzheimer's within our population as well. How does yoga relate to diet?
Well, before I touch on that, you're bringing up a great point too, because there are contraindications. Some people can't, and that's why I did Iyengar training. So, if you had like a neck injury or whiplash, then you'd have to do that inversion on chairs. Or if you really couldn't go upside down from heart injuries, then you do legs up the wall to get a similar experience. So there are a lot of different things you can do. Not everybody can do it. If you have problems with GERD, your sphincter at the base, at the top of your stomach and the base of your esophagus, if that opens up a lot, you shouldn't be doing inversions. So there are ways to get around it. So yeah, yoga is all comprehensive. You may have heard of Ayurveda before. Ayurveda is a part of yoga, and that has the dietary restrictions. They call it eating a sattvic diet, and that's one with that's not too spicy, it's no sugar. When I was in India studying, I admit I would sneak out of the ashram and go to the local dealer. I just had to have a cookie or two. I'm addicted to sugar. I was then. They cured the addiction for a while. Once I got back to the States, like I had a Dorito and I almost died. It's the worst food on the planet because that when you eat sattvic for 30 days, you can taste the sugar of a single corn kernel. It tastes like a frosted flake. You're like, this is so delicious. You don't need salt, butter. You don't need anything on it when you're eating pure and clean. So all our food, it was all vegetarian, and we prepped the food every night for the following day. So it was all fresh. The farmers would bring it in on a cart, either driven, pushed by an ox or they would just bring it in locally and it was fresh. And at one point my fingernails were shining so bright that I thought my roommates had painted them while I slept as a joke. And
Wow.
I got up, sort of threatening them, like, don't play with me. I'm from East Baltimore. Like, I was just going through withdrawal. They took my cell phone, they took my sugar, but I was starting to glow. I literally lost 30 pounds in a month, and my nails were that shiny.
Wow. And it must have improved eyesight and all the hair growth and all those things as well.
Definitely everything. It did everything. So you can really see that we're under siege in Western culture from different industries because and then I was foolish enough to think that the local vendors wouldn't tell the people that ran the ashram. So my little escapades to get a cookie uh every other day, the store owners were telling them like, hey, the black guy comes here, he gets a cookie. He gets a cookie all the time. Out of 80 students, I was the only American and I was only African American. So that was an interesting situation to be in.
Why do you think that is? I mean, I've studied Chinese energetic medicine. I'm studying for my doctorate right now, and I'm the only African American woman in the space. I'm the only Muslim woman in the space.
Yeah.
So what about religion? What about your culture? What about your ethnicity prevents you or prevents us from wholesale participation in this type of work?
Yeah, I think you just said it. I think it is the dogmatic approach of religion, the guilt, the shame, the cultural pressures, all the things that say, Christians might say it's demonic. I mean, it's changing. I don't know much about a Muslim religion and how, if people would say, oh, Muhammad wouldn't want you to do that. I don't know, but I do know that the structure of the fundamentalist structure of all religions sort of admonishes you for going outside to gain insight into something else. And I think that is when everybody should want to do it because it reminds me of Plato's Cave, which I touch upon in my book, that if someone is invested in you only looking at the shadows and thinking that the shadows are real life, and that when you break out and get a little bit of sunshine on your body and you come back to tell others and they're like, that is what holds us back, that we don't embrace open-mindedness and open-heartedness to soften to other people's version of right. It doesn't mean you have to integrate it or assimilate, but at least hear it out with empathy. So I applaud you for following your own heart and getting some traditional Chinese medicine approaches, and then you integrate it into. I mean, I haven't met too many fruit of Islam that look rough. These boys are together. Their diet, like it could be marketed the same way that yoga and everything else is. There's a purity to these men, and they've tapped into something. It's just that maybe that sector has decided not to sell that off, like Eastern culture got infiltrated and it's sort of been sold off. So yeah, I think that's it. Just we're not open to it. I'd love to know what the fruit does. I would do it tomorrow.
Well, I gotta tell you, bean pie has taken me way out the game, so I'm not sure. It is my cookie, all right. But the thing also I would say is a lot of times I think it's also ignorance, right?
Yeah.
Because there is a need to be dogmatic, and under that dogmatic need is control, right? And it's not necessarily based on truth. It's based on what is common and is based on maybe top down acknowledgement of information in terms of how people behave and how it promotes freedom. So, for instance, in Islam, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of God be upon him, actually did practice some of these arts. He did practice the Tai Chi, right? So if you really research, if you're really open, you may figure out along the pathway that there were these kinds of things that were done. In Islam, there's also something that deals with energy, Quranic energy, that people just call ruqya, which sounds a lot like Reiki, right?
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
there's all of this kind of integrated things that you could actually, if you had the historical knowledge, see how they had some level of blend within them. When you, as a professional in this space, work, and you seems like you have all of these, you have the hours, you have all the yoga teacher alliance behind you, but you also have been approved through Indian government and you're certified through them. How did that happen?
Yeah, just following my heart. I wanted my Indian friends here would always say, "Have you been to India yet?" And I'd say, "Nope." And they were like, "Well, you got to go. You have all this knowledge. You got to go and experience it." So I did. I finally got the courage and went over to Rishikesh and studied, and it was a great experience. It was an amazing experience to see the culture. Where I was on the side of the Ganges, it never slept. I mean, it was always some murmuring. If it wasn't the river itself late at night, I mean, the first crack of light, the bells would start ringing. You'd hear a tiger roar every once in a while, because the animals are wild. Like we ran across an elephant on my way back to the airport. And to your point, when I first got off the plane, and I think it was Deradon, yeah, when I got off the plane, a lot of people came up to me and they said, "Hey, Jesus was in India." I just thought that was interesting. They identified me as an American, and just they would speak to me in English. They said Jesus was in India. He learned what he did from here. And so I have a book called Jesus Was in India as well. And we all know that he disappeared for some time and went to study. And I agree. Like everybody was learning from everyone back in those days. And it's all the same thing. It's all a tree. It's just everybody's calling it something different because they're using their culture and their language. And that's what I mean. So to be separated, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. Like I'm a Christian, I guess, is what I'm the closest to, but I have a Hamsa, and that's an Islamic. The Hamsa is an Islamic icon. It's represented in a lot of different religions. So the spiritual aspect of it is what I won't say attracted to, but what I want to support. I want to say, yeah, I'm behind that. So even the devil's eye from Turkey, I got that in the house. I
And
have
then you say the devil's eye, you mean like you it's synonymous with the evil eye.
no, not the African evil eye, but it's a I wish I had it near me. It's just like a little drawing. It's a symbol that they use. Anybody could Google it. But it wards away evil.
Right.
Now, when I visited Africa, when I was walking around um in downtown Ghana in a crowd, what was that region called? But a lot of times people would look a certain way And my God was like, "Oh, they're trying to put the evil eye on you. Oh, here's the
Yeah,
devil's eye."
right. Okay, right.
Yeah, and you see the
Mhm.
Hamzas there too.
Right. Okay.
So,
I just thought that was actually a Jewish hand, but you're saying that it has Islamic roots.
well, yeah, this my Turkish friend, she gave it to me, and Islam is in Turkey. I mean, there's another rendition of it right there.
Right. Okay.
So the evil eye, no, they were not playing with that in Africa. They were like, yeah, you got to cast that off. You don't, here, wear this for protection. But it's all spiritual energy. Uh, that stuff is real.
Right, right. Well, I think, if you do this kind of work, your sensitivity to energy is different, right? It opens up a whole different world. What are some of the lessons you've learned in being in this space and opening up to the space and experiencing energy? Like, how has that been part of your journey in a unique way?
Yeah, I think that's where that term, a lot of people hear the term humility, and I don't know if they really take it in the way I have. That's what I've learned, that whatever I think I know, I don't know. And whatever I think is real is not real. So it's just to remain open to each and every moment and just see what the moment has to teach me. Like I've never gone and done ayahuasca or anything like that. I read Iyengar's book, and he talked about four substances. He says that you could either go through 250,000 iterations of life. They believe in reincarnation. So like you could do that, or you could take one of four substances and achieve samadhi instantly. He's like, the four substances on the earth. He doesn't name them because he's not stupid. He knows we'd all just be like, I'm not gonna go through this eightfold path. I'm just gonna go and take the substance.
I know if
But
we all would do that, but I know there'd be a good segment of the
I
population.
think a lot of us definitely would, because you see it. Everybody wants to I mean, that is the thirst. That is the Western culture. It's more for more sake. So I
Mhm.
think I'm pretty sure one of them was, ayahuasca, that makes ayahuasca. So for me, I'd rather take it slow and easy. Like, if I was appointed to be that person, all of those sort of gifted and anointed people, they have a tough time here in the earthly existence. Stuff is already tough enough than to be stoned or nailed or poisoned. All of our great martyrs are just that, they're martyrs. So ignorance, like you were talking about earlier, Buddha says it's the source of all suffering, and indeed it is. It certainly is the source that causes suffering. I mean, look at now and how our country is divided due to ignorance.
Yeah. You talked about your book on Jesus. You talked about autonomous leadership illuminating the path from shadows to light in our first episode. What is the book that we're missing in this?
Oh, well, let me clarify that point. Jesus Lived in India was done by a PhD from India. I was saying my book as in I possess it. I bought it while I was there. The book I've developed is Autonomous Leadership, and I have several books in the working. So there's a lot that's missing, a lot that I have to offer. I'm just looking for the whisper to tell me when it's the right time. I'm working on it slowly, but the same way Autonomous came to light, it was like I get a whisper, it's like it's time, do it. And I shut down my whole life for a month, and that book came out. So just slowly being prepared so that when coach calls you to the game, you get in there and make some buckets.
The title of our segment today is Breath, Power, and Presence, Changa Bell on Life Force and Liberation. Where is the power?
Oh, I don't know. I don't play with power dynamics. That is the earthly game. I think the power is in us all, like that spark. We were talking about that in our prior conversation on this, the ability to ingest and incorporate prana or chi or ki or whatever we're calling it into your body. It already came with you when you came here. It's just about unlocking it and really being obedient to it. So I think the power is in the self, and that sort of lower self, once it aligns with that higher self, that's the real power. And that's the power that we saw in James Baldwin. That's the power we see in many of our heroes. Excuse me.
And when you say presence, a lot of times when you look at someone who's practicing yoga and some of these other energy ancient arts, it seems like they're in a space that actually isn't present. But in this conversation, we're talking about presence. So how is it that in this state, this meditative state, that you are actually more present?
Yeah, it's, well, well, I'm not. My voice isn't aligned with me right now. Hold on. Yeah, you bring up the best point. Yogis call it the illusion or Maya. Um, being that if everything is energy, then what is it that we really are witnessing? And when we go to sleep, what reality do we go to then? They believe that that's when we go back to the source, and that is what meditation is. It's non-doing. So even if you sit to do meditation, you're not really doing meditation. Meditation sort of just has to befall upon you in a moment. We're gonna have to talk about that again. Hold on. End of the day. All right. Hopefully that's good. So meditation just has to befall on you in a moment of non-doing. So the key is, oh, can you get me some water? We're gonna have to edit a lot. The key is just to not do and to let stillness and all the qualities of it enrapture you into it. Like you'll just fall into it and you lose space of time and all sense of space. And the minute you realize that, you fall out of meditation. It's so frustrating when you first starting to do it because you're like, oh, I'm here. And then you fall right out. You're aware. So it's really, that's why you have to lose the ego, because the minute you say, oh, I'm here, you just separated. You separated yourself from that. So it takes a lot of training to, when you do have those glimpses, to learn not to acknowledge it as something different. Almost like as if you wanted to pet a wild koala bear and you had your hand outstretched for hours and you just always come to the spot for hours and hours and they never come to you, and you realize that what you have to do is climb on the other side of that fence, sit down. And maybe a koala bear is a bad example. I don't know how they are in their natural
I was
habitat.
really trying to relate to that. I
Yeah,
I
I
just,
just
I tried to envision it. Wild koala bear, I would have pet it.
I
It would,
love I love koala bears. So this is why I'm gonna
okay,
go ride with it. So you get there. So what you learn to do is you have to integrate yourself into that environment, right? You have
okay,
to become as still and as normal as the tree that they're in. And so you do that day after day. You sit there, and then one day, maybe it's one of the little baby koalas jumps up on your arm, and the minute you go, you do that, now it might scare it away, might run away, or the mama might come over like, oh, you mean it harm. That's what meditation is like. You're really just going to this environment, sitting, sitting, and one day you'll be a part of the environment. But the minute you separate from it, the minute you're like, you're going to scare meditation away. So you just have to really sit in it, and you become egoless, because if you do acknowledge it, you don't acknowledge it. You let it go instantly. It all happens in a fraction of a fraction of a second, and that is what real meditation feels like. And you have to experience it to talk about it, because before I couldn't really talk about it. I talk about what I read. Now you can see that was more of a rich description, because now I'm talking about what I experienced. And that's what I like about yoga too. It's descriptive, it's not prescriptive. It doesn't say do this amount of prayers and spin around 3 times. It just says, hey, do your journey. And then once you get to certain heights in the journey, then you can come back and talk about it like, oh, this is what I experienced. And then you get affirmed because you'll hear it echoed in other people's testimony.
okay. Well, it's interesting that you share it in that fashion because it is an individualized journey. Though in an American culture, we always are kind of anxious about what check marks do we need to get it done, right? And so I'm wondering, just from your personal experience, at what point in your journey did this become an enlightenment? And before, like you were doing the exercises, at what point did you say, I see?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's certain levels of IC. I don't know that I've gotten to any kind of pinnacle yet. I just, when I'm teaching my students, I'll tell them like they'll receive an email one day. You'll just receive instructions. It'll come across like a thought or even a voice, but not necessarily a real voice, but a thought that is got your name on it, and you're like, huh, and you sit with it. So when you're ready, it just opens up in you. I like to tell people you have to rise to the level of a question. That all the answers exist. Cold fusion, nuclear fusion, all this stuff existed before we discovered it, but we had to rise or arrive to the level of the proper question in order to even get us there as the human race, as humanity, right? So for me, I just keep trying to be humble and rise to the level of the next question, and when you ask it in the right way, the answer just unlocks, it unfolds inside of you, and you're there. You're just suddenly there.
Well, we've been speaking with Changa Bell, who is sounding the alarm, right, of change. A. Through breath, power, and presence. Changa Bell on life force and liberation. This has been an amazing conversation with you as a yoga professional. And if we want to get in contact with you, how do we?
Changabell.com. All things Changabell. Shamefully, I'm on probably every single platform: X, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, you name it, I'm probably there. But really, all things Changabell or at changabell.com. That site, by the time this airs, should be fully revamped, and you'll have LMS learning there. You have a coaching AI chatbot. There'll be a lot of things there, and you'll have me there. You have a repository of videos and curriculum. So that's where any viewer should go if they want to get a hold of me.
Well, Changa, thank you for your time. My name's Latifa Fields, and this has been another profound conversation.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me.